The silent distress call, the crimson sun of Kepler 442, cast long shadows across the mining facility as another explosion rocked the compound. Commander Zara Keth pressed her scaled palm against the reinforced window of the command center, watching debris rain down from the latest Vorthic bombardment. Her golden eyes reflected the fires burning across what had once been a thriving colony. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. The Altarian commander had led this mining operation for 3 years, transforming a barren rock into one of the most productive rare mineral extraction sites in the Outer Rim. Now it was all falling apart. Lieutenant Thane, her second in command, looked up from his console with grim news. "Defense grid is down to 30%. The Vorthic have breached sectors 7 and 12. We're estimating maybe 6 hours before they reach the core facilities." Zara's tail lashed in frustration. The Vorthic Empire had been expanding aggressively for months, swallowing up independent colonies and mining operations with ruthless efficiency. They didn't negotiate, didn't offer terms. They simply took what they wanted and eliminated anyone who stood in their way. Across the command center, Dr. Marcus Chon hunched over a communications array, his human fingers flying across the alien interface with surprising skill. The xenobiologist had been studying the unique crystalline formations on Kepler 442b when the invasion began. Now he was their best hope for getting word to the outside galaxy. "Any response from the Galactic Council?" Zara asked, though she already knew the answer from Marcus's expression. The human shook his head, running a hand through his dark hair. "The Centauri Republic says they're monitoring the situation. The Andromedan Collective claims it's outside their jurisdiction. Even the Zelthran Union won't commit to anything more than thoughts and prayers." Zara hissed in disgust. Politics and bureaucracy while people died. The great powers of the galaxy were content to let smaller species fight their own battles, especially when it might anger the Vorthic Empire. Another blast shook the facility, and Zara watched as one of their defensive towers crumbled into dust. Through the smoke, she could see the dark shapes of Vorthic assault craft moving between the buildings like hungry predators. Their technology was brutal but effective, designed for conquest rather than precision. "What about Earth?" Marcus asked quietly. "I know they're new to the Council, but maybe." Lieutenant Thane let out a bitter laugh. "The humans? No offense, Dr. Chon, but your people barely have FTL capability. What could Earth possibly do against a Vorthic battle fleet?" Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Zara knew the human felt the sting of those words. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, and many species still viewed them as primitive newcomers. Their technology seemed decades behind the major powers, their military small and untested in galactic conflicts. But Marcus had spent enough time among other species to know something that most aliens didn't understand about humans. They were adaptable in ways that other species weren't, where the Altarians relied on proven strategies and the Centaurians on overwhelming firepower. Humans had a talent for finding solutions that no one else had considered. "Send the distress call to Earth anyway," Zara decided. "If we're going to die here, at least every member of the Council should know what happened." Marcus nodded and began encoding the transmission. As he worked, another explosion lit up the darkening sky. The Vorthic were getting closer, and their attacks were becoming more precise. Soon they would breach the final defensive perimeter. The communication array crackled to life as Marcus established the connection. His message was simple and direct, broadcast on all emergency frequencies. "This is Dr. Marcus Chun from the Kepler 442b mining facility. We are under attack by Vorthic forces. Colony population 3,000, including 400 non-combatants. Request immediate assistance. Time to total facility overrun, estimated at 6 hours." The message shot out into space, carrying with it the desperate hope of everyone on the colony. Marcus watched the transmission indicator until it confirmed successful broadcast to all Galactic Council members, including Earth. "Message sent," he reported. "Now we wait." But waiting wasn't something they could afford to do for long. Through the command center's windows, they could see Vorthak ground forces advancing through the outer districts. The alien soldiers moved in perfect formation, their dark armor making them nearly invisible in the growing darkness. General Vexstar stood aboard his flagship in orbit above Kepler 442b, studying the tactical displays with satisfaction. The mining colony's defenses were crumbling exactly as predicted. His forces had perfected this type of operation through dozens of similar conquests. The Vorthak were an ancient warrior race, their entire civilization built around military expansion and the acquisition of resources. They had no interest in diplomacy or peaceful coexistence. Strength was the only currency they understood, and the weak deserved whatever fate awaited them. Status of ground assault? Vexstar rumbled to his tactical officer. "Proceeding on schedule, General. Resistance is lighter than expected. The Altarians fight with honor, but lack the numbers to mount effective defense. We estimate total victory within 4 standard hours." Vexstar nodded with grim satisfaction. The rare minerals on this world would fuel the Empire's expansion for years to come. The existing inhabitants were simply obstacles to be removed. Back on the surface, Zara was making her own calculations. Her people were outnumbered 10 to 1, outgunned, and running low on ammunition. The colonists were brave, but most were miners and scientists, not soldiers. Even with Dr. Chun's tactical suggestions and the human surprising knowledge of defensive strategies, they couldn't hold out much longer. "Commander," Lieutenant Thane called out, "we're receiving multiple responses to our distress call." Zara hurried to the communications station, hoping against hope that someone would offer real assistance. But as she listened to the incoming messages, her heart sank. The Centauri Republic expressed deep concern, but explained that they couldn't spare military assets for localized conflicts. The Andromedan Collective offered to provide humanitarian aid after the situation stabilizes. The Zelthran Union suggested that the colonists seek diplomatic resolution with their attackers. It was all meaningless political speak. No one was coming to help. Marcus watched Zara's shoulders slump as she processed the responses. He had seen that look before in his research on other species' behavior under stress. It was the moment when hope began to die. "There's one more transmission coming in," Lieutenant Thane reported, his voice uncertain. "It's from Earth." The command center fell silent. Even Zara looked up with curiosity rather than hope. What could the newest and weakest member of the Galactic Council possibly offer? Marcus activated the communication system, and a crisp, professional voice filled the room. The speaker had a slight accent that Marcus recognized as North American English. "Dr. Chun, this is Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, commanding the Terran Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call and are mobilizing immediate response. Hold your position. Earth does not abandon its people or our allies. Help is coming." The transmission ended, leaving everyone in the command center staring at each other in confusion. The message had been confident, even commanding, but it made no sense. Earth's military was tiny compared to the major galactic powers. What could they possibly do against a Vorthak battle fleet? Lieutenant Thane voiced what everyone was thinking. "It's a gesture, nothing more. They probably have 1 or 2 ships they can spare. Maybe a diplomatic vessel." At least someone answered. But Marcus was frowning at the communication readouts. Something about the transmission bothered him, though he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The signal strength had been unusually powerful, and there had been something in Admiral Rodriguez's voice that suggested more than empty promises. Outside, the battle was reaching its climax. Vorthak forces had breached the inner perimeter and were advancing on the main facilities. Zara could hear weapons fire getting closer, mixed with the screams of her people. ****. She made the decision that every commander dreads. Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel to the deep shelters. All combat-capable personnel, prepare for final defensive action. It was a death sentence disguised as a tactical order. The shelters might protect civilians for a few days, but once the Vorthik controlled the surface, it would only be a matter of time before they broke through every hiding place. Dr. Marcus Chun stood up from his workstation and walked to the weapons locker. He might be a scientist, but he had served in Earth's military before joining the xenobiology program. If this was where he was going to die, he would do it fighting alongside the people who had become his friends and colleagues. As he checked his weapon, Marcus found himself thinking about Earth. The other species saw humanity as weak, but they had never seen humans when their backs were against the wall. They had never witnessed what happened when humans had something worth protecting and nothing left to lose. The Vorthik didn't know it yet, but they had made a critical error. They had attacked a facility where a human was stationed. And Earth, despite what the galaxy believed, never forgot its own dot in the depths of space. Massive shapes moved through the darkness, following courses calculated with precision that would have impressed even the most advanced alien mathematicians. The rescue fleet was already in motion, had been in motion since the first intelligence reports of Vorthik expansion reached Earth. Humanity had learned long ago that in a hostile galaxy, the best defense was overwhelming offense delivered before the enemy knew what hit them. They had spent 5 years listening, learning, and preparing for the day when someone would test their resolve. That day had finally come. As the last light faded from Kepler 442b's crimson sky, the stage was set for a demonstration that would change how the galaxy viewed the species from Sol 3. The quiet newcomers were about to show their true nature, and the universe would never be the same. Earth's unexpected response, the space around Kepler 442b, had been empty just moments before. General Vextar's sensors showed nothing but the usual background radiation and distant stars. The Vorthik commander was reviewing final assault plans when his tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge's calm efficiency. "General, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system." Vextar turned toward the sensor displays, his armored bulk moving with predatory grace. The readings made no sense. Space itself seemed to be twisting, bending in ways that suggested something enormous was about to emerge from hyperspace. "Analysis," he commanded. "Unknown, sir. The distortion pattern doesn't match any known FTL signature in our databases. Whatever's coming, it's big." On the surface of Kepler 442b, the final battle for the mining colony had reached its desperate climax. Commander Zara Keth crouched behind the twisted remains of a defensive barricade, her weapon nearly empty, watching Vorthik soldiers advance through the smoke and debris. Dr. Marcus Chun knelt beside her, his scientific training put aside in favor of military instincts he had hoped never to use again. Blood ran down his face from a shrapnel wound, but his hands were steady as he checked his ammunition count. 60 seconds to breach, Lieutenant Thane reported over the communication system. His voice was calm, professional, even as his position was being overrun. "It's been an honor serving with you all." Zara closed her golden eyes for a moment, offering a silent prayer to the ancestors. When she opened them again, she saw something that made her question her sanity. The stars were moving, not shifting or twinkling, but actually repositioning themselves against the backdrop of space. What she had taken for distant points of light were revealing themselves to be something else entirely, something that had been hiding in plain sight using technology she didn't understand. "Marcus," she whispered, grabbing the human's arm. "Look up." Dr. Chun followed her gaze and felt his breath catch in his throat. His human eyes, evolved for a different type of star, could see details that Zara's reptilian vision missed. The moving lights weren't random. They were in formation. Above them, space began to ripple like water, disturbed by a massive stone. The first ship to decloak was so large that it blotted out a significant portion of the star field. Then another, peered, and another, until the orbital space around Kepler 442b was filled with vessels that dwarfed even the Vorthic battle fleet. General Vextar stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. 47 ships had just materialized from nowhere, their profiles unlike anything in the Imperial databases. They were sleek where Vorthic ships were angular, elegant where his vessels were brutal. But the power readings coming from those alien hulls made his blood run cold. Incoming transmission, his communications officer reported, voice tight with tension. On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her dark hair was pulled back in, a regulation style, and her brown eyes held the kind of steady confidence that came from absolute certainty in one's abilities. "I am Admiral Sarah Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 847, which prohibits unprovoked attacks on civilian populations. You have 30 seconds to cease hostilities and withdraw from the system." Vextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for Vorthic laughter. "Human, you mistake yourself. The Vorthic Empire does not recognize the authority of your primitive council. We take what we require, and this world's resources are now ours." Admiral Rodriguez's expression didn't change. 20 seconds. "Your ships may be large," Vextar continued, "but you are outnumbered. My fleet consists of 43 war vessels, each commanded by warriors bred for conquest. Stand down, and I may allow you to retrieve your citizen before we claim this. World, 10 seconds. The Vorthic general leaned forward, his scarred features twisted into a sneer. "And if we refuse?" Admiral Rodriguez smiled, and something in that expression made Vextar's warrior instincts scream warnings. "Then you'll discover what happens when you threaten Earth's people." The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthak bridge in tense silence. Around them, the alien fleet maintained perfect formation, their weapons systems showing no signs of charging or aggressive positioning. They simply waited, as if 47 massive warships were no more threatening than a formation of ceremonial escorts. Vextar made the decision that would seal his fate. All ships open fire. Show these humans the price of arrogance. The Vorthic battle fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams capable of cracking planets lanced through space toward the human vessels. Plasma torpedoes that could vaporize city-sized asteroids streaked through the darkness. It was a display of firepower that had shattered dozens of resistance. Movements across the galaxy that the human ships didn't even activate their shields. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams simply stopped, frozen in space as if time itself had been paused. The plasma torpedoes slowed, then reversed course, accelerating back toward their launch points with twice their original velocity. Watched in horror as his own weapons struck his own ships. The flagship's bridge shook under the impact. Of its own plasma torpedoes, and across the fleet, Vorthic vessels began to suffer damage from their own deflected attacks. "What sorcery is this?" he roared. His tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, the humans aren't using energy. Shields. They're manipulating gravitational fields. They're bending space itself." On the surface, the advancing Vorthic ground forces had stopped their assault, staring up at the sky where their fleet was being systematically dismantled by technology they couldn't comprehend. The confidence that had driven them forward through. Dozens of conquests evaporated like morning mist. Dr. Marcus Chon slowly stood up from behind his barricade, his scientific mind racing to process what he was witnessing. He had heard rumors during his time on Earth, whispers about secret research projects and theoretical physics breakthroughs. But this exceeded even his wildest speculations about what his species might have achieved. "Zara," he said quietly, "I think we're about to see why Earth really joined the Galactic Council." Commander Zara watched as one of the Vorthic cruisers tried to flee, its engines pushing it toward the edge of the system at maximum velocity. A human ship that had been nearly invisible moments before suddenly appeared beside it, moving with impossible precision. There was no flash of weapons fire, no explosion. The Vorthic ship simply stopped moving, held in place by forces that defied everything she knew about physics. In orbit, Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching the tactical display with professional satisfaction. Around her, human officers worked with calm efficiency, their voices quiet and controlled as they coordinated the most advanced military operation in galactic history. "Fleet status?" she asked. "All vessels operational. 0 damage sustained. Vorthic fleet neutralized without casualties on either side." The Admiral nodded. Earth's policy had always been clear. Overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy, but to demonstrate the futility of resistance so completely that surrender became the only rational choice. "Captain Morrison," she called to her Special Forces commander, "deploy ground teams. I want those civilians evacuated and the Vorthic forces secured within the hour." Captain James Morrison, Calcine Reaper, had been waiting for this order. The former Marine had led Earth's most elite units through conflicts that the public would never know about, preparing for the day when humanity would have to prove itself on the galactic stage. "Understood, Admiral. Teams are ready for deployment." The human assault shuttles that descended toward Kepler 442b moved like falling stars, their advanced propulsion systems allowing for precision insertions that put troops exactly where they were needed. But these weren't the crude drop pods used by most military forces. They were works of art disguised as weapons of war, incorporating technology that made them nearly undetectable until the moment of deployment. Zara watched the shuttles land with graceful precision, their hatches opening to reveal soldiers unlike anything she had ever seen. The humans wore armor that seemed to shift and adapt to their environment, becoming nearly invisible as they moved through the colony's ruins. Their weapons were compact, efficient, and apparently capable of non-lethal takedowns of even the heavily armored Vorthic warriors. Within minutes, the sound of weapons fire had stopped entirely. The Vorthic ground forces had surrendered without meaningful resistance, overwhelmed by tactical precision and technology they couldn't counter. Dr. Marcus Chon walked slowly toward one of the human landing zones, his mind still struggling to process what he had witnessed. The soldiers who emerged to meet him moved with professional confidence, but there was something familiar about their leader. Captain Morrison removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face that spoke of experience in conflicts across multiple star systems. When he spoke, his voice carried the slight drawl of someone from Earth's American South. "Dr. Chun?" "Captain James Morrison, Terran Special Forces. Sorry, we're a bit late to the party." Marcus stared at the man, then at the impossible technology surrounding them, then back at Morrison's casual demeanor. "How?" he asked simply. Morrison's grin was equal parts friendly and predatory. "Doc, Earth's been busy these past 5 years. Turns out when you give human engineers access to alien technology and tell them to improve on it, interesting things happen." Around them, the rescue operation continued with machine-like efficiency. Human medics were treating wounded colonists with equipment that seemed to heal injuries in minutes rather than days. Engineering teams were already beginning repairs on critical infrastructure. The entire operation moved with a precision that spoke of extensive planning and preparation. Commander Zara approached the group, her golden eyes wide with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. "Captain Morrison, I am Commander Zara Keth. I must know, how did Earth mobilize such a fleet so quickly? Our distress call was sent only hours ago." Morrison exchanged a glance with Dr. Chun before answering. "Ma'am, with respect, that fleet's been in position for 6 weeks. We've been tracking Vorthic expansion patterns and had a pretty good idea where they'd hit next. When your distress call confirmed it, we just dropped the stealth systems and went to work." 6 weeks? Zara's tail lashed in confusion. "But your people, they're supposed to be ... new to the galaxy? Primitive? Weak?" Morrison's expression grew serious. "Commander, Earth learned a long time ago that in a hostile universe, the best way to protect what you care about is to be the scariest thing in the dark." Above them, the last of the Vorthic ships was being escorted to a secure holding position by human vessels that moved like they were part of some vast, choreographed dance. The demonstration was over, but its effects would ripple through the galaxy for years to come. Dr. Chun looked up at the stars, where the human fleet maintained its perfect formation, and realized that everything had changed. Earth hadn't just rescued a mining colony. They had announced their true place in the galactic order, and the universe would never see humanity the same way again. The quiet newcomers from Sol 3 had revealed their true nature, and it was both terrifying and magnificent. In trying to help the weak, the galaxy had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. As the rescue operation continued into the night, one truth became clear to everyone present. Earth didn't just protect its own. When they made a promise, they kept it. And when they came to help, they came in force.